Knowing what you don't know when you do user testing is one of the most important things. So that's why today, in our second part of the user testing series, I want to talk about how to set up user tasks in order to gain meaningful results at the end. First of all, know what you want to test. In the best case scenario, of course, you test everything, but that's most of the time very unrealistic because you have a limited amount of time. So you need to set priorities, and in order to do that, you need to know the goals that you want to achieve with the testing. So let's say you want to increase your newsletter sign up, then what you should test is each step for the users to get there, basically, in order to improve it. Secondly, you should focus on new functionalities. It's super important because usually you don't have any benchmark and you don't know how others do it, so it's important that you do the testing. And then remember, everything that you don't test, you kind of go blind on. Secondly, you want to know how to test. And this very much depends on where you are in the design process. Let's say you want to test the information and navigation structure of your solution, which you can do very early in the process by having a simple paper prototype or wireframes. What you want to do is you want to set up a task. Let's say you have a banking app and the task is, please do a transaction. You observe your user and see whether they find the functionality where they expect it. Secondly, what you want to do is you want to test the entire solution with your click dummy. And a click dummy is not just the wireframes, it also has the visual layer on top. And here you can really test the entire flow of your solution, as well as understanding if the visual elements emphasize the functionality that lays behind it. Third, I want to talk about some rules for setting up the tasks. So first of all, what you shouldn't do is ask very leading questions. For example, you have a website and your question is, please go to the career page, and career is written in the navigation bar. Instead, what you want to do is you want to ask general open questions. For example, you have a website and you want to apply at that specific company, what would you do? Because the question should really be related to what the user thinks in that specific moment, and they probably wouldn't think I want to go to the career page, but rather be related to the actions that they want to take, and that is apply for a job. This leads me to the next part, which is about creating a realistic scenario for your user. So sharing only the relevant information that really creates a realistic situation that they know in which context they would do that specific task. Don't do any crazy storytelling which can confuse the user. Third of all, you want to only do one task at a time. So if you have your list of questions, really go one by one, also in order to not do any confusions. And then at the end, when you're done with all your questions, ask about the general impression that the user had to get really that feeling as well, because sometimes they do have some ideas for maybe other functionalities that you haven't even thought of at that point. To sum up, know what you want to test and set up the right task for it. And be aware that everything you don't test leaves you in a blind spot, which increases the risk for failure. Also, don't share information the user doesn't have in the real context, because that leads to biasing your user, and it also leaves you to not spotting problems that the user would have in the real situation.